good evening, or perhaps good night. As the world outside begins to quiet its insistent demands, and the last vestiges of daylight soften into twilight, we invite you to embark upon a gentle journey. A journey not through grand empires or tumultuous battles, but into the subtle, often overlooked corners of human experience. Tonight, we will explore the quiet art of ancient light, the simple, yet profound ways our ancestors illuminated their evenings, and how these sources of glow shaped their lives, their dreams, and their very perception of the night. Close your eyes, if you wish, or let your gaze drift as we drift back through time. Imagine a world before the dazzling brilliance of electric bulbs, before the omnipresent hum of artificial illumination. A world where darkness held a different weight, a different meaning, and where the precious gift of light after the sun had set was a deliberate, often cherished creation. Consider for a moment the sheer courage it must have taken to navigate a night truly devoid of artificial beacons, the silence, the cold, the vast, unseen spaces beyond the flickering campfire. It was a world where light was not merely a convenience, but a fundamental aspect of survival, comfort, and communal life. Tonight, our path will be illuminated by the flickering dance of flame, the gentle burn of oil, and the quiet glow that once guided hands and minds through the hours of darkness. We will seek to understand not just how these lights were made, but what they meant, the comfort they offered, the stories they whispered, the simple, steady presence they provided in a world far removed from our own brightly lit present. We will delve into the very textures of these historical evenings, the faint scent of burning fat, the subtle sounds of a wick consuming oil, the way shadows stretched and danced across ancient walls. It is a journey into the intimate world of historical illumination, a sensory exploration of forgotten glows. We will travel from the earliest glimmer within prehistoric caves to the sophisticated lamps of Roman villas, through the smoky glow of medieval hearths, and into the subtly brightening parlors of the Georgian era, finally touching upon the gentle hiss of gaslight. But our journey will not end there. We will delve further into the hidden world of nocturnal professions, exploring how specialized lights aided those who toiled under the cloak of night. We will explore sacred flames, understanding the spiritual significance of light across cultures and epochs. We will examine the science of softness, discovering how ingenuity refined the quality and direction of the glow. We will even touch upon the ephemeral glows that existed beyond the flame, from the bioluminescent to the chemical. And finally, we will witness the quiet passing of the lamplighter as the age of individual flames gives way to a new era of widespread, modern illumination. Each stop on our journey will reveal not just technological advancements, but the changing relationship humanity held with the night and with the precious, handcrafted light that pushed back its boundaries. So settle in, let your thoughts quiet, and allow the subtle history of light to gently guide you towards repose. Our journey into the history of light begins in the deep past, long before recorded history, in the quiet depths of caves, and within the earliest human settlements. Here, the struggle against absolute darkness was immediate and vital. The very first lamps were born of necessity and an ingenious understanding of the natural world. Imagine, if you will, the profound, absolute darkness that would have enveloped the world after sunset and prehistory. No distant city lights, no street lamps, no ambient glow from electronic devices. Just the vast, consuming blackness, broken only by the cold, distant light of the moon and stars, or the warm, uncertain flicker of a campfire. It was within this deep, ancient darkness that humanity first began to intentionally capture and control light. The earliest lamps were astonishingly simple, yet profoundly effective. Imagine a shallow depression in a piece of stone, perhaps a natural indentation found by a riverbed, or one carefully carved by patient hands using another stone tool. Into this humble vessel, our ancient ancestors would place animal fat, the rendered suet of a deer, a bear, or a mammoth. This fat, when slowly melted, would provide the fuel. And then a simple wick, often a twisted piece of moss, a fibrous plant, or even a strand of animal hair, would be drawn through the fat, resting just at the surface. The very act of preparing such a lamp would have been a deliberate, unhurried ritual, a mindful preparation for the approaching night. With a spark, perhaps struck from flint against a piece of iron parides, or the careful transfer of fire from a communal hearth, a small, persistent flame would emerge. This was the primordial lamp, a fragile beacon in a vast, intimidating darkness. Its light was modest, certainly, barely enough to illuminate a small circle around it, perhaps only a meter or two in diameter, but its impact was profound. This single dancing flame offered a sense of controlled warmth, a tangible boundary against the cold, unseen world beyond its immediate glow. It transformed the experience of night from one of pure vulnerability to one of potential, however limited. This early glow transformed the night. It allowed for activities beyond mere survival, the crafting of tools, the intricate flaking of flint into blades, the patient grinding of pigments for painting. It allowed for the adornment of caves with stories told through vivid, powerful imagery. It enabled the repair of garments, the preparation of food for the next day, tasks that required visual precision. Most importantly, perhaps, it allowed for quiet contemplation around a communal warmth, a gathering place where stories could be told, knowledge shared, and bonds strengthened. The flickering light created pockets of safety, islands of human endeavor in the boundless ocean of night. It pushed back the fears of the unseen, the whispers of hidden predators, allowing for a semblance of peace and rest that was otherwise unimaginable. As humanity transitioned from nomadic hunter-gatherer societies to more settled agricultural communities, the design of these lamps evolved, though their fundamental principle remained unchanged. From simple, found stone, they progressed to pottery, allowing for more consistent shapes and capacities. The shaping of clay, a new skill, meant that lamps could be molded specifically for purpose, with improved wicks rests and fuel reservoirs. The fuel, too, broadened beyond just animal fat, incorporating plant oils as they became more accessible through early cultivation, oils derived from sesame, flax, or eventually the olive. Each nascent civilization, in its own quiet way, refined this technology. The Egyptians, with their meticulous attention to detail, crafted lamps from faience and alabaster, often shaped like lotus flowers, merging function with aesthetic beauty. The Mesopotamians utilized simpler terracotta vessels, focusing on practicality for daily life within their bustling city-states. The early Greeks developed lamps with multiple spouts for several wicks, seeking greater light output from a single source. All understood the deep, pervasive need for controllable light after the sun had set. The subtle improvements, a spout for the wick to rest securely, a small handle for ease of carrying without burning one's fingers, spoke to a gradual, careful integration of these small, fiery companions into the fabric of daily life. These were not dramatic leaps, but rather gentle, incremental refinements, born from thousands of quiet evenings spent observing the dance of flame. These lamps were not mass-produced in the way we understand it today. Each was often a testament to individual craftsmanship, a small clay vessel shaped by hands that knew the subtle curves needed to hold the precious oil, to cradle the flame just so, ensuring a steady, even burn. The potter's wheel, even in its most basic form, allowed for uniformity and elegance. The clay would be carefully prepared, kneaded, and then thrown onto the wheel, slowly taking shape under skilled fingers. Then the careful drying, and finally the firing in a kiln, transforming soft earth into a durable vessel for light. They were personal objects, imbued with the silent stories of countless evenings past, witnessing generations gather, work, and dream within their gentle glow. They stood as quiet sentinels against the vast unknown darkness, year after year, century after century. It is a humbling thought how much of early human life was conducted within the small, humble circle of light cast by such a simple yet profound invention. As we move forward in time, our journey brings us to the expansive and intricate world of the Roman Empire. Here, the art of light, while still reliant on humble oil and wick, blossomed into a more refined and perhaps more ubiquitous presence within the daily rhythm of life. The Romans, known for their pragmatic approach to engineering and their love of organized domesticity, embraced the oil lamp not just as a necessity, but as an integral part of their daily routines and their cultural identity. The Roman night, though still largely unlit by modern standards, was increasingly punctuated by the steady, warm glow emanating from countless homes, public baths, and temples across the vast empire. The Roman oil lamp, most commonly crafted from terracotta, became an indispensable item in nearly every household, from the grandest villas to the most modest insulae or apartment blocks. These lamps were simple, yet elegant in their functionality, often mass-produced in molds, making them accessible to all levels of society. Their basic design consisted of a reservoir for fuel, typically olive oil, which was abundant throughout the Mediterranean. A small channel or spout would hold the wick, usually made of linen, and often a small curved handle allowed for ease of carrying without risking burns. The base was usually flat, allowing it to rest securely on any surface. The light they cast was soft, warm, and intimate. It was not the overwhelming brightness we're accustomed to today, but rather a gentle pool of illumination, defining specific spaces and activities within the shadowed interiors. Imagine the quiet murmur of conversation, perhaps hushed storytelling as children drifted off to sleep. Picture the gentle rustle of papyrus as a scholar meticulously reads a scroll, or the subtle clink of pottery during a late supper, all held within the embracing glow of these small flames. Each lamp created its own sphere of light, a personal sanctuary within the larger darkness of the room. The air might carry the faint, earthy scent of warm olive oil, a comforting and familiar aroma of a Roman evening. While terracotta lamps were ubiquitous, wealthier Romans often favored lamps crafted from bronze. These metallic lamps, sometimes exquisitely detailed with figures of gods, animals, or even miniature architectural elements, served not only as light sources but as objects of art and status. Their polished surfaces would catch and reflect the light in subtle ways, adding a gentle shimmer to the room. Bronze lamps were often more elaborate, sometimes designed with multiple wicks for greater illumination, or suspended from intricate chains to cast light downwards. They spoke of luxury, taste, and the ability to command resources from across the empire, like the skilled artisans who would meticulously craft them. Beyond the domestic sphere, these lamps also played a role in public life, albeit a limited one. Streets in Roman cities were not typically lit as we know them today. The night belonged more to shadows, a realm for the moon and stars, and perhaps the occasional lantern. However, watchmen might carry lanterns to patrol the streets, their small beacons piercing the gloom. Public buildings, such as temples, bathhouses, or forums, would have lamps burning in their interior courtyards or porticos, casting their gentle glow outwards into the vast expanse of the city's slumber. Festivals and religious ceremonies often involve the illumination of public spaces with numerous lamps, creating a magical, temporary effulgence in the heart of the city, a testament to the power of light to transform space. The sustained, steady flame of the olive oil lamp allowed for evening pursuits that required concentration, the writing of letters, the meticulous copying of documents, the study of scrolls containing ancient wisdom. It allowed for the careful counting of coins, the preparation of accounts, or simply quiet contemplation in the solitude of one's private chambers. This gentle light extended the productive hours beyond the setting sun, but always within a mindful appreciation of the light's precious, finite nature. There was no casual flicking of a switch, no thoughtless consumption of energy. Each light required intention, preparation, and careful tending. The trimming of the wick, the refilling of the oil. This daily ritual of tending to the flame was a quiet, constant reminder of its value, a rhythmic pulse of light against the encroaching darkness. It fostered a unique relationship with the night, where its quietude was not always a barrier, but often an invitation for reflection, study, or intimate connection within the small, warm circle of light. Our journey through the quiet art of light now brings us to the medieval period, a time often perceived as dark, but one where the ingenuity of illumination continued to evolve. While oil lamps, particularly simple pottery ones, persisted in some regions, a new form of contained light began to gain prominence across much of Europe, the candle. The transition was gradual, driven by the availability of materials and the specific needs of a society increasingly shaped by rural life and monastic traditions. The medieval night was often deeper, colder, and more profoundly silent than its Roman predecessor, making the presence of any light source all the more cherished and significant. The earliest and most common medieval candles were made from tallow, a rendered animal fat, typically from cows or sheep. These candles were utilitarian, the backbone of everyday illumination for the vast majority of the population. They provided a reliable, though often smoky light, and their production was closely tied to the agricultural calendar and the cycles of butchery. They burned with a distinct aroma, a earthy, slightly fatty scent that would have permeated medieval homes, a smell woven into the very fabric of medieval evenings. This was not a pleasant fragrance by modern standards, but it was the smell of light, of warmth, of safety in the face of the encroaching dark. The process of making tallow candles was a simple yet patient one, often carried out in farmhouses or dedicated workshops. Wicks, typically made from twisted flax or hemp fibers, would be repeatedly dipped into molten tallow, allowed to cool and harden slightly, and then dipped again, layer by layer, until the desired thickness and stability were achieved. It was a repetitive, almost meditative task, the rhythmic creation of light for the coming darkness. Alternatively, for a slightly quicker process, molten tallow could be poured into molds, often made of pewter or tin, forming a more uniform candle. This process, known as molding, allowed for greater consistency, but still required a careful hand and an understanding of the material. For those who could afford it, a superior source of light existed, the beeswax candle. Prized for its cleaner, brighter flame, its sweet, subtle aroma, and its significantly longer burn time, beeswax candles were a luxury item. Their production was tied to the labor of beekeeping, a valuable and specialized skill. They illuminated the chambers of royalty, the sacred spaces of magnificent cathedrals, and the quiet studies of monks and scholars. The light from beeswax was pure, steady, and less prone to sputtering, making it ideal for tasks requiring clarity and sustained focus, such as reading or intricate handwork. In the quiet solitude of monastic scriptoriums, the beeswax candle was an invaluable companion. Its steady, clear light allowed scribes to meticulously copy and illuminate texts, often with intricate gold leaf and vibrant pigments, preserving knowledge through long, silent hours that stretched deep into the night. The gentle flicker of the candle would have been the only movement in the otherwise still air, a rhythmic dance accompanying the scratch of quill on parchment, the rustle of vellum. It was a testament to dedication, illuminated by a light that was both practical and, in its purity, almost sacred. For many monks, these hours of study by candlelight were a profound act of devotion, a quiet communion with the texts themselves. Candle holders themselves ranged from crude, practical devices to beautifully crafted pieces of metalwork or carved wood. Simple iron prickets, sharp spikes onto which a candle could be impaled, held the common tallow candles upright. More elaborate brass candlesticks, often designed with ornate bases to catch melting wax, were reserved for the more precious beeswax candles and adorned the tables of the wealthy. The rushlight, a simpler, cheaper alternative, involved dipping a dried rush plant in tallow or grease, offering a brief, dim glow for the poorest households, often held in a simple, scissor-like holder that allowed the burning end to be tilted. These rushlights, though rudimentary, provided a crucial spark of light in homes where even a tallow candle was a luxury. Their brief, sputtering light spoke of a harder, more tenuous existence. The medieval night remained, for the most part, a realm of deep shadows. Street lighting was almost non-existent, and travel after dark was fraught with uncertainty, both from the uneven terrain and the fear of brigands or unseen dangers. The light of a single candle or a humble lamp was a precious commodity, rarely wasted, always appreciated for the limited sphere of comfort and visibility it provided. It was a time when the stars and moon held a more dominant, almost overwhelming presence in the night sky, their distant light a constant silent companion, guiding travelers and setting the rhythm for those who rose before dawn. The medieval world lived in closer harmony with these natural cycles of light and dark, understanding deeply the value of even the smallest flame. As we move into the early modern and Georgian eras, roughly from the 17th to the early 19th century, the pursuit of better illumination continued, driven by an increasing desire for comfort, extended social hours, and the burgeoning thirst for knowledge. The humble lamp was about to undergo a significant transformation, paving the way for a new era of evening activities. The Enlightenment, with its emphasis on reason and inquiry, fostered a demand for clearer, more consistent light, allowing intellectual pursuits to stretch beyond the confines of daylight. The 18th century saw the widespread adoption of whale oil as a primary fuel for lamps. While a controversial practice in retrospect, driving extensive whaling expeditions across the globe, whale oil provided a significantly brighter, cleaner, and less smoky flame than animal fats. This was a crucial leap forward in domestic lighting. It allowed for improved visibility, making evening reading, intricate needlework, letter writing, and sophisticated social gatherings much more practical and enjoyable. The typical whale oil lamp often featured a globular glass reservoir, which allowed one to easily see the oil level and had one or more spouts for wicks, often with adjustable mechanisms to raise or lower the wick, controlling the flame. Imagine a Georgian drawing room, bathed in the soft yet ample light of several whale oil lamps. The light allowed for intricate details and embroidery to be seen clearly, for the fine print of books to be read without strain, and for faces to be clearly discerned during lively, yet still composed, conversations. The evenings could now extend gracefully, fostering intellectual exchange, polite debate, and social connection in a way that had been much more challenging with dim, smoky tallow candles. The sense of confinement imposed by poor light began to lift, creating a more expansive and inviting evening atmosphere. The sounds would have been gentle, the rustle of silks, the murmur of voices, the soft turning of a page, all underpinned by the quiet, steady glow. Then, in the late 18th century, a truly revolutionary invention emerged from the mind of A. Maugand, a Swiss chemist and inventor, the Augand lamp. This ingenious design introduced several groundbreaking features. Firstly, it used a circular wick, allowing air to flow both inside and outside the flame, maximizing combustion. Secondly, it incorporated a glass chimney above the flame. This chimney served a dual purpose. It protected the flame from drafts, preventing flickering, and more importantly, it created a strong upward draft, drawing a constant supply of oxygen to the flame. The result was a flame of unprecedented brightness and efficiency, burning with remarkable clarity and very little smoke or odor. The argan lamp was a revelation. It provided illumination equivalent to many traditional candles or multiple simple oil lamps, but with far less fuel consumption and vastly superior light quality. It transformed homes, enabling more complex tasks to be undertaken after dark, and ushering in an era where the evening hours became truly integrated into productive and leisure time. It became a must-have item for the educated and the wealthy, symbolizing progress and refinement. The light was so bright, in fact, that early users often had to adjust to it, as it was unlike anything they had experienced before. It brought a new crispness to the visual world after sunset. With the argon lamp, the boundaries between day and night for activities like extensive reading, detailed drawing, or serious study began to blur significantly. No longer were these pursuits restricted to daylight hours or the dim glow of multiple messy candles. A single argon lamp could provide sufficient light for sustained concentration, allowing scholars, scientists, and enthusiastic amateurs to delve deeper into their interests, fostering innovation and learning. This newfound clarity in domestic spaces contributed to the quiet expansion of knowledge and individual pursuits, allowing for a more profound engagement with the written word and the pursuit of intellectual curiosities, all within the comforting, steady glow of this remarkable invention. Our journey through the quiet art of ancient light nears its end, as we enter the era where individual flames began to yield to a new, more expansive form of illumination, gaslight. This innovation, while still relying on combustion, brought a steady, almost ethereal glow to public spaces and, eventually, private homes, signaling a profound shift in how entire cities experience the night. It marked a move from localized, personal light sources to a centralized public utility, fundamentally altering the urban landscape. The late 18th and early 19th centuries witnessed the advent of gaslighting, a technology that harnessed the flammable properties of coal gas. Initially used for industrial purposes, illuminating factories and mills, it soon found its way into public spaces, transforming city streets from shadowed labyrinths into navigable thoroughfares after dark. London, in particular, famously began lighting its streets with gas in the early 1800s, turning night into a more accessible and less foreboding time. Imagine the soft, consistent hum of the gas lamps, a sound that became synonymous with the urban night, a new, comforting background noise to the rhythms of city life. The lamplighters, a familiar sight, would move methodically, igniting each lamp with a long pole, bringing pockets of steady brilliance to the thoroughfares. Unlike the flickering, intimate glow of individual candles and oil lamps, gaslight offered a more uniform, pervasive illumination. It provided a heightened sense of security and extended the hours of public life, allowing for evening strolls, later shopping, and a greater sense of connection and communal experience within the urban environment. The fear of deep, unknown shadows began to recede, replaced by a more predictable, comforting presence of light that stretched down long streets and illuminated public squares. The social fabric of cities began to change, with evening entertainment, theater-going, and social calls becoming more commonplace and less restricted by the fall of darkness. The constant, steady glow created a different kind of public space, one that felt safer and more inviting after dusk. Eventually, gaslighting found its way from public thoroughfares into wealthier homes, offering a level of brightness and convenience previously unimaginable. No more the constant trimming of wicks, or the messy refilling of oil reservoirs for multiple lamps. With a simple turn of a tap, a room could be instantly filled with light, altering the domestic routines and leisure activities of the evening in a fundamental way. Gas chandeliers, often beautifully ornate, became central features in parlors and dining rooms, bathing the entire space in a soft, steady glow. This meant that families could gather, read, entertain, and engage in hobbies with far greater ease and comfort than ever before, creating a new rhythm for the domestic evening. The control of light became simpler, more instantaneous. This marked a significant psychological shift from the deliberate, hands-on engagement required by earlier forms of illumination. No more the slow preparation, the careful tending of the flame, the gentle hiss of the gas, the steady, unwavering flame. These became the new sounds and sights of the illuminated evening, replacing the crackle and flicker that had been constants for millennia. This convenience allowed for a more casual relationship with light, setting the stage for the next great leap in illumination. Yet, despite its efficiency, gaslight still possessed a certain inherent charm, a warmth and a gentle quality that distinguished it from the colder, harsher artificial lights to come. As gaslight spread, the traditional lamps and candles, while still used for specific purposes or in homes without access to the new technology, began their slow, quiet retreat from primary positions of illumination. Their flickering flames, once the sole source of evening warmth and vision, became more symbolic, more decorative, or reserved for moments when a softer, more intimate glow was desired. The grand, silent march towards modern, widespread electric light was beginning, driven by the desire for even greater brightness and convenience, but not without the gentle, nostalgic echoes of the flames that had guided humanity for millennia. These older forms of light, though fading from everyday use, held within them the stories of countless quiet evenings, of generations who found solace and purpose within their humble, precious glow. Our journey continues beyond the domestic hearth and the public street, delving into the more specialized realms where light was not just a comfort, but an essential tool for survival and livelihood. Here, under the cloak of night, specific professions relied on unique forms of illumination to carry out tasks that could not wait for the dawn. Imagine, for instance, the medieval watchman patrolling the narrow, winding streets of a sleeping town. His primary companion would have been a lantern, a simple but crucial invention. Unlike an open flame, the lantern encased a candle or small oil lamp within a protective housing, often made of pierced horn, thin parchment, or later glass panels. This shielding prevented the flame from being extinguished by wind or rain, and also reduced the risk of accidental fires in a world built largely of wood and thatch. The watchman's lantern cast a small, focused beam, just enough to reveal uneven cobblestones, suspicious shadows, or the quiet presence of a sleeping dog. Its rhythmic swing would have been a familiar sight and sound in the deep stillness of the medieval night, a comforting assurance to those behind locked doors, and a warning to any ill-doers. The light was not for grand illumination, but for discreet navigation and vigilance, a moving point of order in a vast darkness. Consider next the perilous world of the miner. Deep beneath the earth, sunlight never penetrated, and the only light available was what could be carried. Early miners would often attach a small candle or open oil lamp directly to their helmets or caps, providing a hands-free light source as they chipped away at rock. These flames, though small, were literally their lifeline, allowing them to see the rock face, identify precious ores, and navigate treacherous tunnels. However, the open flame also presented a constant, terrifying danger. Flammable gases known as fire damp, which accumulated in coal mines. A single spark could ignite an explosion, claiming countless lives. This immense risk led to the development of specialized lamps, like the Davy lamp and the Geordie lamp in the early 19th century. These ingenious devices encased the flame within fine wire gauze, which prevented the hot flame from directly igniting external gases while still allowing light to pass through. The gauze acted as a heat exchanger, cooling the gases below their ignition point. The light they produced was dim, casting a soft, yellowish glow, but it was a life-saving light, a testament to innovation born from urgent necessity. The quiet hum of the burning wick within its protective cage would have been a constant, reassuring sound in the dark, damp, and often claustrophobic confines of the mine. Far above, on treacherous coastlines, stood the lighthouse keepers. Their mission, to guide ships safely through the perils of the night. For centuries, lighthouses relied on immense, powerful oil lamps, often fueled by whale oil in later eras, strategically placed behind complex systems of lenses and reflectors. The very act of maintaining these lights was a solitary nocturnal vigil. The keeper would meticulously trim wicks, replenish oil reservoirs, and carefully clean the glass lenses, ensuring a constant, unwavering beam. The light emanating from these lanterns was not for intimate domesticity, but for vast, long-distance communication, a beacon of hope across miles of dark, churning ocean. The rhythmic flash of a lighthouse, each with its unique signature, became a silent language between land and sea, a promise of safety in the deepest night. The quiet, focused work within the lantern room, the distant sounds of crashing waves, and the vast, empty expanse of the sea would have defined the world of the lighthouse keeper after dark. Even within early industrial settings, specialized lighting emerged. Before widespread electric lighting, early factories and mills that operated around the clock, particularly textile mills, relied on dense clusters of oil lamps or later early gas lights. These lights were often suspended from ceilings, casting a smoky, sometimes uneven illumination over rows of machinery. The air would be heavy with the scent of burning oil and the constant rhythmic clatter of looms or other machinery. This was not light for comfort or contemplation, but for a relentless production, allowing the Industrial Revolution to push beyond the limits of natural daylight. The shadows cast by the machinery would dance and stretch, creating a somewhat eerie, yet intensely focused environment. The constant vigilance required by factory workers under this early crude artificial light highlights another dimension of humanity's relationship with night, its conquest for continuous labor. These specialized lights, whether carried by an individual or fixed in place, tell us a story of human determination, of the quiet bravery and tireless work performed under conditions that most modern individuals would find daunting, all made possible by the persistent, humble glow of various historical light sources. They underscore that light, beyond its domestic comfort, was a fundamental enabler of human activity, even in the deepest, most challenging hours of darkness. Beyond the practical needs of daily life and work, light has always held a profound, almost mystical significance for humanity. From the earliest times, the very act of bringing forth fire and light from darkness was seen as a divine act, a metaphor for creation, knowledge, and spiritual presence. Our journey now takes us into the sacred spaces of history, where light illuminated not just physical objects, but the very soul. Consider the temple lamps of ancient civilizations. In Egypt, oil lamps were not just for illumination, but held symbolic meaning as the Eye of Ra, illuminating the eternal presence of the gods. Temple interiors, often dark and mysterious, would be brought to life by the steady glow of numerous lamps, perhaps carved from stone or cast in bronze, their flames dancing before divine effigies. The air would be thick with the scent of incense, mingling with the subtle aroma of burning oil, creating an atmosphere of reverence and awe. The flickering light would make shadows shift and deepen, lending an otherworldly quality to the sacred carvings and painted walls, transforming a physical space into a conduit for the divine. Similarly, in ancient Greece and Rome, oil lamps were perpetually kept burning in temples and before household altars to deities and ancestors. These perpetual flames symbolized continuity, devotion, and the living presence of the divine within the human realm, serving as quiet, watchful sentinels of faith. In early Christian traditions, candles quickly became central to worship. The flickering flames symbolized Christ as the light of the world, guiding believers through spiritual darkness. From the smallest votive candle offered by a humble pilgrim to the towering Paschal candle lit during Easter, candles marked moments of prayer, reflection, and celebration. In the vast echoing interiors of medieval cathedrals, the collective glow of hundreds, even thousands, of beeswax candles during a solemn mass would have been breathtaking. The golden light would filter through stained glass, illuminate intricate altarpieces, and dance across the vaulted ceilings, creating an ethereal ambience unlike any other. The gentle scent of melting beeswax, pure and sweet, would fill the air, a sensory signature of holiness. The quiet rustle of vestments, the murmur of Latin chants, and the profound silence punctuated by the soft crackle of countless wicks. All these elements combined to create a meditative, otherworldly experience, guided by the omnipresent, gentle light. Moving further east, the eternal lamps of synagogues and mosques carry a similar weight of spiritual significance. The Ner Tamid, the eternal light in a synagogue, perpetually burns before the Torah ark, symbolizing God's everlasting presence and the menorah's constant light in the temple. In mosques, oil lamps, often exquisitely crafted from glass or metal with intricate calligraphy, illuminate prayer halls, not as objects of worship themselves, but as instruments that bring light to the act of devotion. Their soft, diffused glow creates an atmosphere of serenity and contemplation, facilitating prayer and study. The emphasis is on gentle, uniform illumination, fostering an environment of peace and focus, rather than dramatic contrasts. Across the Asian continent, light also held profound spiritual meaning. In Buddhist temples, offerings of butter lamps in Tibet or oil lamps in Thailand symbolize the dispelling of ignorance and the attainment of enlightenment. The act of lighting a lamp is a meditative practice, a quiet gesture of devotion and aspiration. In Hindu temples, ghee lamps are used in arati ceremonies, where the flame is waved before deities, symbolizing the offering of light, prosperity, and devotion. The warmth and movement of the flame are integral to the ritual, engaging the senses in worship. The smell of burning ghee, rich and nutty, becomes intertwined with the spiritual experience. Even in simpler, more ancient spiritual practices, the deliberate creation of a sacred fire or the lighting of a specific torch held deep meaning. From the ceremonial fires of indigenous peoples, symbolizing purification and connection to ancestors, to the ritual torches carried in ancient Greek and Roman processions, light was a conduit between the human and the divine. These were not just practical sources of illumination. They were focal points of belief, physical manifestations of spiritual truths, tended with reverence and care. The quiet tending of these sacred flames, the silent prayers offered in their presence, and the contemplation they inspired offer a poignant reminder of humanity's enduring quest for meaning, illuminated by the gentle, timeless glow of light for the soul. Our exploration of ancient light has, until now, focused primarily on the fuel and the flame itself. But the story of illumination is also one of ingenuity in how that light was captured, directed, softened, and enhanced. As humanity's understanding of materials and optics grew, so too did their ability to manipulate the precious glow, transforming a raw flame into a tailored source of comfort and utility. This chapter delves into the quiet innovations that perfected the domestic glow. The earliest improvements were often accidental or rudimentary. A simple white wall behind a lamp, or a polished metal plate, would have offered the first intuitive reflector, bouncing some of the precious light back into the room. As metallurgy advanced, more deliberately shaped metal reflectors, often made of polished brass, copper or silver tin, were incorporated into lamps, particularly from the 17th century onwards. These reflectors were often concave, designed to collect and project the light in a more focused direction, maximizing the output of a single flame. Imagine a single candle, its light barely illuminating a table, suddenly becoming much more effective when placed before a gleaming curved brass plate. The scattered light was gathered, disciplined, and directed, making evening tasks like reading or needlework significantly easier. The advent of glass was a turning point. Early glass was often cloudy and uneven, but as glassmaking techniques improved, particularly during the Roman era and again in the Venetian and Bohemian workshops of the Renaissance, glass began to transform light. The simplest yet most profound application of glass was the lamp chimney, which became ubiquitous with the argand lamp and later oil and gas lamps. We touched on this in Chapter 4, but let's consider its profound impact again. Before the chimney, flames were exposed to drafts, causing them to flicker wildly, smoke excessively, and burn unevenly. The chimney created a stable, enclosed environment, drawing a steady current of air around the flame and leading to a much brighter, cleaner, and more consistent light. Imagine the quiet satisfaction of seeing a flame burn steadily without the irritating dance and soot, simply because of a carefully shaped piece of glass. This stability was a game changer for any detailed work or prolonged leisure activity in the evening. Beyond the chimney, glass globes and shades began to soften and diffuse the light. Instead of a harsh, direct flame, glass could spread the illumination more evenly throughout a room. Opaque or frosted glass globes, popular in the Victorian era with gas lighting, would soften the brilliance, creating a gentler, more ambient glow that reduced glare. Tinted glass could even cast subtle hues into a room, adding a layer of aesthetic ambience. Imagine a drawing room filled not with stark points of light, but with a diffused, almost ethereal glow emanating from frosted glass fixtures, creating a more relaxed and inviting atmosphere. And then came the lampshade. Originally simple fabric coverings used to shield the eyes from the direct glare of a bright flame, lampshades evolved into elaborate decorative elements. Early shades were often made of silk, paper, or even painted glass. They not only directed light downwards onto a task or table, but also softened the upward diffusion, creating pools of intimate light within a larger, more softly lit room. The careful selection of fabric, its color, and its texture could dramatically alter the mood created by a lamp. A deep red silk shade might create a warm, intimate glow, perfect for quiet conversation, while a pale, translucent one could offer a more general, softer illumination. The quiet art of arranging light through these shades transformed home interiors, allowing for nuanced lighting schemes long before electricity. Finally, the mechanisms of adjustment became more refined, from simple levers to raise or lower a wick, to intricate geared systems that allowed for precise control over gas flow or lamp elevation. The ability to fine-tune the light became paramount. These subtle mechanical advancements were designed for quiet, smooth operation, allowing the user to precisely control the intensity and direction of their evening glow with a minimum of fuss or disruption. The constant pursuit of a better, softer, and more controllable light for the home speaks volumes about humanity's enduring desire for comfort and beauty, transforming a simple necessity into a quiet art. While our journey has primarily focused on the controlled combustion of fuels, humanity's fascination with light extended far beyond the flame. For millennia, people observed and occasionally experimented with natural phenomena that glowed without burning, or sought ways to create light through non-combustible means. This chapter quietly explores these more ephemeral, mysterious, and often overlooked forms of historical illumination, hinting at the scientific curiosity that would one day lead to electric light. One of the most ancient and accessible forms of natural, non-combustible light came from bioluminescent organisms. Imagine a deep, dark forest at night, suddenly illuminated by the soft green glow of foxfire, a phenomenon caused by certain fungi decaying wood. Early travelers and naturalists would have encountered this eerie, beautiful light, perhaps using it as a subtle marker in the dark woods. Similarly, glowworms and their mature counterparts, the fireflies, offered fleeting, sparkling beacons in summer evenings. While never a practical source of widespread illumination, these natural glows surely inspired wonder and perhaps even sparked curiosity about the nature of light itself. Imagine a child, wide-eyed, catching fireflies in a jar, creating a temporary living lantern, their soft pulsing light a magical counterpoint to the steady flame of a candle indoors. The study of phosphorescence and luminescence began to intrigue early scientists and alchemists. In the 17th century, the discovery of Bologna stone, a type of barium sulfate, which glowed in the dark after being exposed to sunlight, was a source of great fascination. Though its glow was faint and temporary, it was one of the first human-discovered substances that exhibited true phosphorescence. Later, the element phosphorus itself, discovered in 1669, was noted for its ability to glow in the dark when exposed to air, hence its name, meaning light bringer. While dangerous in its elemental form due to its flammability, the phenomenon of its soft, almost ghostly luminescence captivated minds, hinting at possibilities beyond the burning wick. Early applications of these non-flame glows were often more novelty than utility. For instance, luminous paints and substances, often containing compounds like calcium sulfide, began to appear in the 19th century, used for clock faces, crucifixes, or other objects intended to be faintly visible in the dark. These would be charged by exposure to sunlight and would then emit a weak glow, enough to discern outlines in a deeply shadowed room, but certainly not to read by. They offered a magical, silent light, a subtle presence in the deep night, rather than a powerful illumination. Another fascinating, albeit niche, historical light source involved chemiluminescence, light produced by a chemical reaction without significant heat. While largely a 20th century development for practical applications, early observations of such phenomena would have been perplexing and mysterious. The gentle, cool light of a chemical reaction, completely divorced from fire, must have seemed like true magic. Even beyond these scientific curiosities, some cultures utilized natural light sources in unexpected ways. Certain tribes in the Amazon, for instance, were known to use luminous fungi or even living beetles as temporary, mobile light sources for navigating forests at night. The soft, living glow of these creatures would provide just enough visibility to walk a path, a testament to the ingenious adaptation to natural resources in the absence of more developed lighting technology. These lights beyond the flame were never the primary sources of historical illumination, remaining largely in the realm of curiosity, science, or very specialized ephemeral use. Yet their quiet existence speaks to a persistent human fascination with light in all its forms, a deep-seated desire to pierce the darkness, not just with fire, but with any substance that could be coaxed to yield a glow. They represent the whispered beginnings of a scientific understanding of light that would eventually lead to entirely new, non-combustible forms of illumination, far removed from the humble wick and oil of millennia past. Our long journey through the history of ancient light culminates in a poignant moment of transition, the quiet fading of an era, marked by the gradual disappearance of the lamplighter and the flickering gas flame from our streets. This chapter gently observes the twilight of one form of illumination and the bright dawn of another, reflecting on what was lost and gained. For much of the 19th century, the lamplighter was a familiar, comforting figure in cities across the Western world. As gaslight became widespread, these individuals performed a daily ritual, first igniting the lamps at dusk, then extinguishing them at dawn. Picture them carrying a long pole with a small flame or hook at the end, moving methodically from lamppost to lamppost. Each gentle pop or hiss as a flame came to life, pushing back the encroaching shadows. Their presence was a vital part of the urban night, a human connection to the city's pulse, a silent promise of light and safety. The steady rhythm of their rounds, the distant clink of their pole against the iron post, became a subtle, ambient sound of the evening, marking the transition from day to night. For many, the sight of the lamplighter was a deeply comforting one, a sign that the city was settling into its illuminated slumber. But progress, relentless and quiet, was always on the horizon. Even as gaslighting reached its zenith, a new force was stirring in laboratories and workshops: electricity. The development of the practical, long-lasting incandescent light bulb by inventors like Edison and Swan in the late 19th century signaled the beginning of the end for gas and oil as primary illuminants. Electric light offered unprecedented brightness, efficiency, safety, and perhaps most significantly, instantaneous on-demand illumination at the flick of a switch. There was no need for wicks, oil, or gas lines, no daily tending. The transition was not instantaneous, but gradual, a slow, gentle dimming of the old ways. For a time, cities were a patchwork of old and new, some streets still lit by gas, others by the starker, brighter glow of early arc lamps or the softer incandescence of electric bulbs. The lamplighter, once indispensable, found their role diminishing. Their numbers dwindled as gas mains were replaced or converted, and electric wires snaked their way across urban landscapes. The quiet click of a switch began to replace the deliberate striking of a match or the precise manipulation of a lamplighter's pole. What was lost in this transition? Perhaps a certain intimacy with light. The older forms of illumination, the oil lamp, the candle, the gas jet, they all had a living quality. A flicker, a scent, a warmth, a direct connection to a burning fuel. They required interaction, tending, a mindful awareness of their presence and limitations. Electric light, by contrast, is often perceived as a ubiquitous, almost invisible force, always there at our command, rarely requiring our conscious thought. The silent, steady glow of an electric bulb lacks the ephemeral dance of a flame, the subtle shifts in shadow, the gentle aroma of oil or beeswax. Yet what was gained was undeniable: unprecedented convenience, safety, and the ability to banish profound darkness from virtually any space at any time. The quiet passing of the lamplighter, therefore, is not a story of tragic obsolescence, but a poignant chapter in humanity's long, slow journey towards mastering light. It is a moment to pause and remember the patient hands that tended the flames, the subtle sounds of historical evenings, and the profound difference that each small, individual glow made in the lives of our ancestors. The memory of their flickering presence reminds us of how far we have come and how precious light, in all its forms, has always been. And so our gentle journey through the quiet art of ancient light comes to its close. We have moved from the primal glow of animal fat and stone bowls, illuminating the earliest human endeavors, to the intimate warmth of Roman olive oil lamps shaping domestic life. We then ventured into the rustic charm of medieval tallow candles and a luxurious gleam of beeswax, before witnessing the steady brilliance of Argan's ingenious designs, and finally the pervasive, gentle hiss of early gaslight transforming our very cities. We delved into the hidden world of nocturnal professions, understanding how light became a specialized tool for watchmen, miners, and lighthouse keepers. We explored the sacred flames that symbolized divine presence and illuminated spiritual rituals across diverse cultures. We examined the science of softness, discovering how ingenuity in glass, reflectors, and shades perfected the gentle glow for our homes. We even touched upon the ephemeral glows that existed beyond the flame, from the bioluminescent to the chemical, hinting at the future of light. And finally, we observed the quiet passing of the lamplighter, a symbol of an era giving way to the brilliant, instant illumination of modern times. Each flicker, each steady flame told a story of human ingenuity against the vastness of darkness, of perseverance through long, shadowed nights, and of the profound human need for comfort, connection, and the gentle illumination that allows for quiet thought and peaceful rest. These are not merely tales of technology, but whispers of how light shaped the very rhythm of life, how it allowed for dreams, for learning, for the simple, profound act of being together after the sun had set. As you drift deeper into the quiet of your own night, perhaps you might carry with you a small echo of these historical glows. The knowledge that for countless generations, humanity found solace, productivity, and a sense of calm within the humble, beautiful light of a single flame. It is a subtle connection across time, a shared experience of pushing back the darkness, one quiet light at a time. May your own evening be peaceful and your sleep undisturbed. Good night.